Your retirement is in trouble. My name is Eugene Hoover. I'm a wealth advisor specializing in financial planning. Retirement is a hot topic. Why? Because most people want to be able to retire one day. And the big thing with retirement, the thing that's similar for everybody is in order to retire, you need to achieve your version of economic prosperity. Now, economic prosperity means that you have sacrificed a little bit today and saved enough for your future expenses. What I'm concerned about is inflation is causing so many issues today that you're never really going to be able to retire. One of the things I see is some people don't save enough for retirement. They don't have the investments, they don't have the savings to retire and to have enough for those expenses that they're going to have when they get older. But one thing, a kind of a saving grace that many people actually had was and is a house. And so, if you have a 30-year mortgage, by the time you get to retirement or around retirement, you're actually paying off that house. And so you have those assets. And I look at housing, owning a house, as essentially a forced savings. And so that's one nice thing about the house. But today, if you can't even afford to get into a house, to put a down payment in order to and pay those mortgage payments, you'll never have that asset. And so that's a huge concern I have. The young people of today, so when they retire tomorrow, they won't have the savings, the investments, or the assets to retire effectively. To save for retirement, you have to have surplus income to save and invest. But if inflation is causing such a problem today, how much left do you really have after your necessities are paid, your housing, your food, if you have any kids, all their expenses? What's left for you to invest? It needs to be a significant enough number that you're going to be okay in retirement. Even those that have a surplus of income every month are seeing their future retirement being eroded by high prices. Now, ideally, lawmakers would take this seriously and stop spending so much money. But let's be realistic. We cannot count on them doing that. So where does that leave it? It leaves your successful retirement in your hands. So what do? How do we achieve it? Well, you start today. Unless a miracle happens and your crazy Uncle Joe gives you $2 million to retire tomorrow, it's on you. And so the only way for you to achieve economic prosperity is by deliberate planning and execution. Now let's go through some of the steps of how you can achieve this. Number one, and this is if you're just starting out your journey. Number one is make a budget and stick to it. I know it takes some work, but I'm not saying that you have to track every single penny that comes in and out of your household. What I am saying is you do need to have a budget where you have an idea of what you're spending on, food and clothing and your housing. And essentially what you're going to find out is, here's my income, here's what my necessities are that I have to pay no matter what. And then ideally you're going to find a number left over after those necessities are paid that you can use for investing and for fun spending. But there's too many people today, and probably historically, that just kind of guess. They keep buying stuff until the bank counts at zero. But you need to have a deliberate plan after necessities are taken care of investing. And that goes into point two if you're just starting this journey. And that is to pay yourself first. And what pay yourself first means is it means you're investing in your future. Now, investing can be in multiple genres. It can be you putting cash into things like the market or saving, but it can also be things like more schooling or accreditations or reading a book, buying used books. It can be cheap. That's investing in yourself. So once you get the budget taken care of, you know what your necessities are, now you can make sure you're investing a certain amount. I don't know you, and therefore I can't give you an exact amount. I haven't made a plan for you, so I don't know exactly how much you need to be saving today to achieve your financial prosperity tomorrow. But just a general education is I'll just say try to save 20% of your income. It's going to be different for everybody because everybody's at different stages and in a different situation. But just aim for 20% as a general rule. Now, once you've achieved the budget, once you're paying yourself first, you're investing in yourself after the necessities, and then whatever's left you can enjoy, and that's your fun spending. Now you get to move on essentially to the second stage. The second stage now is you get to focus on your cash flow management and tracking your goals, right? At this point, necessities are taken care of. You're investing in yourself and investing for the future older you. And if you have to, think about it as a seesaw, right? And a seesaw, it goes up and down. And so maybe you're coming down, your today is coming down a little bit. You're not spending as much in fun. But what it means is those deferred spendings, what you're going to spend in retirement, which could be for fun or for necessities, that will be there for the older you. I know you have to take care of the today, but you also need to take care of the you tomorrow. So now that we're focusing on cash flow management and tracking your goals, you've figured out the budgeting process. You've figured out where each dollar goes and what each dollar's job is. But now you have other goals. Yes, retirement, great. That's one of your goals, or whatever your version of retirement is. But maybe you want another car. Maybe you need a new car, a more reliable car. Maybe the kids, you want to save for your kids' education, their tuition costs, which are insane right now and will be even more insane in the future. Well, those are goals. Those are things you ought to start saving for beforehand, rather than realizing you need a $30,000 car and having $5 in your bank account. So you've got to start planning for these goals. And these goals can be things for yourself, they can be things for other people, but the whole idea is cash flow management and to start tracking your goals and planning for them. Now the next thing on this stage is maximizing your dollars. At this point, you've already done the budget. You've already started investing, into yourself. But now that you have a little bit of money and you've got investments continuing to grow, now it's the time that, there's so many different types of retirement accounts that you can use. For example, you all probably know about a 401k. Great. That's one tax advantaged vehicle to save for retirement. There are a lot of other different types of vehicles that may be even better, or in addition to something like a 401k, right? If you're saving for your child's, 18-year-old tuition expenses, there's things like 529s, right? So there's all these investment vehicles that you can use in order to gain an advantage. And most of the time that advantage is to pay less in tax, right? So keep those things in mind. Now, moving on to the final stage. And when you make it to this stage, congratulations. If you've made your wealth, and you're near or already in retirement / financial freedom, and it doesn't necessarily mean you're not working at a job anymore, but once you've achieved this, awesome. But two steps to remember. Number one, have a solid plan in place. At this point, especially if you're someone who's retiring or just retired, realize things are changing now. The idea is you don't have any more income. The rest of your dollars, all the dollars that come in for the rest of your life now, are from your investments. You're not growing that bucket anymore. You're pulling from it. And here's the thing. If you do not have a proper plan in place, one of two things is going to happen. Number one, either the old you is going to run out of money. And at some point in retirement, you're going to run out of money, and it's going to be miserable and horrible for the last remaining of your years. Option number two, which I see very often with frugal people, and I love you frugal people because I'm one of you. But number two is when you actually don't spend nearly enough. And I see people passing away with all of this saved up fun, is what I'll call it. You had all this life to live, and because you didn't plan and say, okay, I can actually spend this much and I want to do this much, the money just goes to waste. And don't get me wrong, some people have the goal and goals, plural, of they want their kids to have inheritance or charities to have their inheritance. That's perfectly okay, and that should be included in your plan. But oftentimes, I see it all the time, there's a lot of life left unlived. And so a proper plan, the idea is to prevent or get as close as possible to achieving perfection. You'll never achieve perfection, but you can aim for it, and a plan will help you do that. Now, on to number two, Once again, maximize your potential. We've talked about, what type of retirement accounts you're using for tax advantages. You're saving for tuition, 529s, great. There's a lot of different types of accounts. If you're trying to pay taxes today rather than tomorrow, what's a Roth versus a traditional, retirement account? There's all these options. And honestly, this is one of my selling points is my goal is to help you maximize all these things, right? Because every dollar should go as far as possible. A note on maximization, and this is something I'm passionate about because that's what I do, is on your way to create wealth, you face a million different forms of taxation, inflation, penalties, rules, and numerous other obstacles. So the very fact you make it to wealth is a blessing. But don't forget, the moment you start making some money, you garner sizable assets, you become a target. You become a target to the government, the IRS, and other tax professionals, right? And so keep that in mind. I can't change the laws or the current economic situation, but what I can do is help you maximize every dollar. And that's something you ought to do all the time, but a big one is in retirement because that's all the cash you're going to get. Those are your investments, so maximize them. And with your plan, just this is a brief interlude. With your plan, if you, for example, are planning on having a lot of fun at the beginning of your retirement, plan that in so you can have that fun and you don't have all that life left to live. My name is Eugene Hoover. I appreciate your time. Until next time.